Joining us now from the nation's capital is Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie. Congressman, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. So we are finally at the end of this long-awaited impeachment saga. I mean, of course, it started in your chamber, in the House, and now it's in the Senate, where it looks like the president will be acquitted as soon as Wednesday. What's been your process so far regarding the closing arguments that we've seen as of today and the whole process in general?
Well, this actually started out down in the SCIF, 3 floors under the Visitor Center in Washington, D.C., in our committee, the Oversight Committee. We called those the witness tryouts. When Nancy Pelosi didn't trust the Judiciary Committee, she gave it to Adam Schiff and Jim Jordan on our side. I'm on the Oversight Committee. But now they brought it above ground. They didn't really make a good case in the House. They rushed it out of the House, but then they delayed it before it got to the Senate because they didn't have a case. Nancy Pelosi said it needed to be bipartisan. Well, the only thing that's been bipartisan so far is the opposition to it. Every Republican and some Democrats voted against it in the House. And to show you where this thing is politically with the American people, you're going to see the same thing in the Senate, I think, on Wednesday. You're going to see every Republican vote against it and a few Democrats cross the aisle to be against it as well.
And we've already seen some Democrats say that they may not necessarily accept the findings of this acquittal. They say that this whole process wasn't a fair trial. They say that because there were no witnesses there, that it isn't exactly what they were looking for when they sent over the articles of impeachment to the Senate. So do you think that your colleagues in the lower chamber, in the House of Representatives, do you think that they're going to continue investigating this to some degree, whether it's going to be a continuation of this Ukraine saga or maybe even a different investigation against the president?
Well, we had the fake dossier, then we had the collusion delusion, and then we had the Mueller-Nothingberger report, and now we've got this impeachment sham. They need something to fill up that part of their soul. I'm convinced they'll go after something. I don't know what it is yet. I would like for them to come back to Congress and legislate instead of trying to damage this president in the next election. But undoubtedly, they will come up with something moving forward. And to the point about not having enough witnesses, I thought it was odd in the Judiciary Committee, which is typically where impeachment trials are held, that they only called like the 4 so-called constitutional lawyers to talk about the process, and that was it. They could have called witnesses there if they wanted to, and I think one of the reasons they shut this down so quickly in the House is they didn't even want the courts to respond to the question of whether the president could exercise his executive discretion on these witnesses or not, because they wanted to get him for obstruction of Congress. So, if they don't like the process, they ran it from start to finish in the House.
And regarding that dossier, actually, Hakeem Jeffries maybe had a slip-up of some sort where he said that the dossier was okay because it was paid for as compared to something else, which may not be a financial exchange. I think that was kind of a slip-up on his part. And also, regarding it's now what the Senate is going to do as well. I mean, a lot of Senate Republicans, they said that they just wanted to kind of get this process through, want to get it carried away with. But to your point, I'm sure that Democrats are going to continue investigation. It was the Russia investigation at first, it was Ukraine then, and now it's going to be something new coming up next. Would you like to see some of your colleagues in the Senate maybe execute some of their oversight when it comes to maybe asking someone like Hunter Biden to come in, to follow up on this whistleblower complaint or anything like that? Or do you think that this should kind of die with this removal vote?
Well, if the Democrats will drop it, I think we could move on. But if they want to linger on this, sure, they control the witnesses, they control the hearings they have over in the Senate. They could call somebody. There were other things that the Democrats have chased in the House. They said that the census was rigged, that we were asking the citizenship question to try and change the results of the census. They've gone after just about everybody down to an intern in this administration using the Oversight Committee in the House. I expect that to continue, unfortunately. What they'll do is to go after cabinet members probably now that the president's going to be acquitted. And by the way, this is going to be a historic State of the Union tomorrow night. I don't think we've ever had a president who's had an impeachment hanging over his head when he's delivering the State of the Union, but that's going to be the case tomorrow night.
Yeah, and regarding the State of the Union, really quick before I let you go, too, it's usually kind of backwards looking and touting the achievements, but there is some promise about what's ahead as well. What would you like to be seen done in the legislative efforts over the next year?
I'd like to see us get to work on infrastructure. That's where Republicans and Democrats can agree. I think the president is going to toot his horn on some of the things that have been ignored. They redefined waters of the U.S. so that it doesn't include groundwater anymore, which was ridiculous to call that navigable to start with. So, and in the stock market, I mean, the president has a rightful place to brag that it's gone up 50% since he took office. My constituents are telling me they're looking at their 401ks and they can't even believe their own eyes. So at the end of the day, I think the next election is going to be about the economy, and the president is going to tout how the economy is doing at this State of the Union, and I think he should. There's more we could do, though. Infrastructure, I'd love to hear him talk about that, and I'd love to see the Democrats come to the table.
Yeah, well, we only have to wait about 24 hours to see what he will talk about. But Congressman Massie, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me this evening.